Pamela, this, I mean, every time I read it, I mean, I'm going through it. I know that it's like taking, if I could say I want to help someone coming out of addiction and, and coming to the Lord and take like 25 different prongs and it's got to fit perfect. This fits perfect. I mean, I wouldn't change a thing, and it's amazing. And I want to say too, when you did a poll earlier, everyone, there was a poll out of a prison in Kansas a few years ago. How many inmates do you think are in the prison where their parents got married, planned their child, had the child, and the person was still in prison while the parents were still married? Okay, the answer is 0%. And I want to tell you, that just takes it back to how important the family, things that happen in childhood, how important that is, and having seeds planted of God, these things that what it manifests to that their countries went away from. But I want to say that, I'll tell a little my story here, but Pamela, what a divine appointment, I'll tell you, when we met. And I want everyone to say too, that you cannot get behind anything out there that's Life Changers Legacy, and to get behind this project, I'm going to announce right now, I'm going to put in another 5,000 tonight myself. So
thank you, Mike.
You can't get the biggest bang for your buck. I mean, did you see that statistic? I was watching that 70% go back to prison with your program, Pamela. 0%. I mean, you guys, I'm seeing this for the first time myself. But I want to tell you, I'm going to tell you how I'm qualified to say when I say here's the best help ever. It's because of the experiences I've had. I was an addict. Cigarettes were so far down my list they didn't even count. But if I go back to I'll tell a little bit of my story. I was in the late 1960s. My parents divorced when I was 7 years old. And I got put into a new school where divorces weren't common. I was the only child from a broken family. I'm the only kid from a broken family. So I get in there and it's like, I didn't fit in. The devil started telling me lies. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. It was, I would either not talk to people or show off, watch me climb out this bus window and jump out of a moving bus window. I mean, and all these different things. And I got to our 5-year class reunion. Now, I had dropped out of college in the first quarter, and I knew I wasn't where I could be in my life. But I get there, and everyone's either finishing college, or they're starting families, or they've kept working in their career. And I hadn't done anything, but I got there and I took over that reunion and I started telling them all about, I owed the mafia money. I owed them 20 grand. They came to break my arms. I was riding a motorcycle and on the way skydiving and crashed it and got back up, went down there and my parachute didn't open. And I'm telling him all these stories, which were true, but I got home that night and I laid in bed and I almost started crying because I really wanted what they had. I didn't have. It was an empty, just empty. Well, I got introduced to cocaine in the early 80s, where then I could have it filled me with false courage. It filled me with it. It hid all these wounds that I had, anything that was down there, any pain. It just, I thought it solved everything. And what I found out later on was I always had a fear of rejection. The devil had manifested this to a fear of rejection. Well, you don't get rejected if you don't talk to people. And it was very simple. Well, anyway, I prayed to God and I thought, what I want the most is I would pray to God when, I believed in God. I didn't have a personal relationship with Jesus, but I would pray when things were bad. God, get me out of this. And I will change. I'll never do the drugs again. I'll never do this again. Whatever it would be, I would do this reactionary prayer and I would get through it. I mean, these prayers would get answered. Most of the time, I'd be in jail and going, I'll never do this again. Just get me out of here at least 5 days early or whatever, and sitting in solitary or whatever it was. And you got a lot of time to think. And well, God handed me a woman that I was praying for. All I wanted was a family. I thought, what, give me a family. That'll solve everything. And I had a family, 20-year marriage, raised 4 kids. She had a child when she came into the relationship. So I had 4 kids. And we were very functioning, we were addicts, but very functioning addicts. I think people nowadays, they go, oh, the addict's just in the street. No, there's addiction no matter how many forks you eat with. So we're all, we all have, everybody's affected by addiction nowadays. Anyway, what happened to me then, the cocaine changed to crack in the early 2000s. And when that changed to crack cocaine, and it was about the same time, that I invented my pillow. So I had these two parallel railroad tracks, and you had the crack addiction where now it's no longer social. It was like you're peeking out windows and tweaking and carpet farming and all these things that a crack addict would know what I'm talking about. But I would, when I invented my pillow, then I kind of just switched the addiction over here, and I thought, and I worked on this and worked on it, and everyone's saying, you're never going to invent a pillow and all these. And I kept up about a year and a half, but when I had it all invented, I didn't have any money left. I had 4 little kids, married, and I walked into stores and I was turned down everywhere. It was total, a complete shutout. And someone said, well, Mike, why don't you do a kiosk? I said, how do you spell that? So I ended up doing this kiosk, and that failed because I couldn't talk to people. I couldn't be high there. So I would go in my own right. If I was with just myself, I didn't feel good. I was very kind of almost introverted because I couldn't deal with people. I had that, I don't know what it was, shame, or like I say, fear of rejection. Well, anyway, this one guy bought one pillow from that the one day that I was there, and he bought a pillow for me, and he got my phone number. And the following month, now we had went through Christmas, borrowed money from an ex-bookie for Christmas presents. And this guy called me up and he said, hey, the one number I'd given out, he said, you're the guy that invented this pillow. He said, it changed my life. And he said, I run the Minneapolis Home and Garden Show. Would you like a spot in there? So I said, sure. Well, I went and did that show, and I put a table in between me and the public. So I could talk, but I could talk to him then. It was like almost like a shield. If I got out behind that, I couldn't talk, I couldn't talk to people. I go out to have a cigarette. I couldn't talk to people. I just was not social because I wasn't high. And anyway, I got the people that I sold a lot of pillows that day, more than I had ever sold. But the next day, people came back in that show. It was almost like God set this up. And they came up and told me what a difference it made in their life. Well, it wasn't about the money. They said, this pillow helped me so much. It wasn't about the money. I felt good inside. I felt that I had accomplished something and helping people. I loved helping people. It felt so good. And so I kind of just, for 7 years, I'm doing this, shows and fairs. And at that same time, though, I still had this crack addiction. And I kept the two separate, but I lost a 20-year marriage. There was so much betrayal that some of it was my own fault. Some of it was other people that had happened. And anyway, in 2008, I was downtown Minneapolis, and I had been up for 14 days. I had a warrant out for my arrest. And I would always tell my friends too that, someday I'm going to quit and come back. And, I tell them about when I was in jail, reading in Revelation, the end times, and they would find the Lord that night or quit altogether. And the next day I'm going, what did I say? I'm losing friends. Well, this particular night I come out, I've been up for 14 days, no sleep, came out of the room and there's all 3 of my biggest drug dealers are standing there, and they're going, I go, what are you guys doing? They go, and they knew of each other, but they had never met. And they said, we're cutting you off. You've been up 14 days. And I said, what is this, an intervention? They said, call it whatever you want. Now, 2 of them left, and the third one sat there waiting for me to go to sleep or run out of crack. I'm finally out, and I'm on the carpet looking for crack in a drop. We call it carpet farming. I look over, and he finally fell asleep. And I headed down to the streets of Minneapolis, and I could not buy crack anywhere, which if anybody's been there, I mean, these guys are addicts too, a lot of them, so they're going to sell it to you, but they had gotten the word out. I came back upstairs, and he's waiting up for me. It was 2:30 in the morning. I'll never forget it. And he goes, how'd that work out for you? And I said, I'm all upset. And he goes, you've been telling us for years that this My Pillow is just a platform for God, and you're going to come back someday and help us get out of this addiction world we're living in. And two of those guys, by the way, work for me now. They're born again Christians. Well, but if you fast forward, I'm going to fast forward here. Later that year, I didn't quit that day. In December of 2008, my friend, and this is very important because I'm going to kind of compare it to the mentor program that you have, Pamela. My friend came to me. I was all by myself in this old farmhouse or this woods, and I'm sitting there. All my stuff was gone. I had very little physical possessions left, and I'm staring at the ceiling. All of a sudden, my friend Dick came back. He was my equal. We had both started cocaine at the same time. We were functioning addicts, both switched to crack at the same time. But I heard he had found the Lord 4 years earlier, and I hadn't seen him. And he came popping in, and I'm going, Dick, what are you doing here? He goes, the Lord led me here. He goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, as long as you're here, I have questions for you. The first one I asked him, I said, is it boring? He said, no, man, it ain't boring. And he was my hope match. And he was like, I'm going, wow, it's hope. It's like his story became my hope. Like, Pamela, your story becomes people's hope, my story. And anyway, a month later, on January 16, 2009, I prayed to God. Now, I made sure I didn't have anything left, any physical possessions, but I knew if I waited one more day, my calling would be gone. And they will say, was that your bottom? Well, I said, call it what you will, but I knew my calling would be gone. I wouldn't have that choice anymore the next day where I'm at now. It would be another path, okay? Well, I prayed to God. I said, I want to be freed of the desire for all these addictions. And then I'll do this platform thing, because I knew he had this big calling and platform. Well, I woke up the next day, I go, wow, something's different. And they were all gone, okay? The desires were gone. But I'm going to fast forward. 2 months later, I felt led to go to a faith-based treatment center at our church. And I had been to secular treatment. I mean, in and out of treatment centers. Whenever I'd be in jail, or you get less time. I probably avoided prison because I went to treatment. It was a game we played, okay? And you didn't learn nothing in secular treatment. It's like they shame you more. Oh, you're bad. You hurt your family. You spent all your money. We're addicts. We know that. You get out and you feel like you wait for Uncle Joe to die or something so you can relapse. And anyway, I was led to go to my faith-based church and treatment center. And I get in there, and the first day, I start bragging up of how much I've done and stuff, addiction. And he goes, we don't care how much you did. He goes, tell us about your father. And I go, well, what do you mean? I came from a divorced family. And I said, I had a good upbringing. And he started digging into wounds that I didn't even know I had from childhood. And it was all this, it was all about God and Jesus that they were teaching. And I'm going, but he planted seeds there. Now I'm going to really fast forward here for the sake of time. I left there and I go, wow, this is different. And, I had planted these seeds. Well, then you all know I got real big with My Pillow. I did my first infomercial and it just exploded. They said the night before when we were filming, the one producer said, we're doing our reads. He said, this is the worst guy I've ever seen. He'll never make it on TV. Oh. Well, for me, because I got out there and I was so nervous. I couldn't talk to people. When I quit my addictions, I still wasn't inside completely, okay with myself. Well, you all see me wearing my cross on TV all the time. And wow, he's a man of faith and all this. And, well, I was that person that I believed in God, but I didn't have that personal relationship. Well, here's what happened in 2014. We were within 2 days of going under at My Pillow, and I met a gal. Her name is Kendra, and she is with her today. And she said she had something I didn't have. She had that personal relationship. And I'm going, well, I believe in God. And we'd get in these kind of arguments, and then things started happening to me that I use mathematics to know that God exists. I'm going, what are the odds of this happening? 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, and this is impossible. And you add them together, when did they become a miracle? Well, things started happening to me. Like I got invited to the National Prayer Breakfast that Pamela's talking about. And I was picked out of 12 people to pray with Ben Carson in a room. I mean, there's just these different things that happen. Well, anyway, it led up to February 18th, 2017. And I went into another place where it's actually for veterans. These are veterans that have had their hearts, all this trauma from, that happened, and wounds from childhood. And I went into this place with hope. And I went in there, and it was the same thing that they were planning, the same things in the book, Pamela, that you have there. I won't go into this, and I went in there with hope that I could too get that personal relationship. And I did a full surrender on February 18th, 2017. That's only a few short years ago. And when I got out of there, I could finally use my platform and go out and speak out for Jesus, or get behind great things like the I See Me Free or booklet and Life Changers Legacy, and be able to speak out for Jesus like I did a pillow. And it's, I'm telling you now that me knowing what it takes for addicts, when you have, and people that have the hearts, they need their hearts restored. There is nothing better than Life Changers Legacy. And I know this from experience, from looking through and going, here's what, I'll tell you what, people can relate when you said it, Oz, when mentors, you're mentoring the mentees, you're actually helping yourself. I mean, it's just an amazing program. And your restoration center, I can tell everyone out there, you need to get behind this. There's nothing better. This is, when you have 100% success rate, I mean, that's what it's all about. And we are in the biggest revival, I believe, in history. You want to help people out there, and you want to give God the glory. This is the best thing ever.